Hey, good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix. I'm back. Yes, and I'm with familiar friends. In the background here, you can see the one and only Jasper getting ready to set down in the crown. And then we're also joined today by none other than Peachy. Yeah, you know your name now, don't you? Are you coming over here? You want to be part of this? Come here. I'm going to show people. I'm going to show people who you are, Mystery Cat. So, good morning. I was told I shouldn't say good morning, that it's like a curse, like, the language thing, like morning, like you're mourning something. So, buenos dias, mi amigos, mi amigas. This is the Astro Weather, and today is April 5th, 4/5/23. Come on up here. Let's go. Yeah, we can hear you. You're making a little presence felt. It's the new cat. They seem to have gotten along in my absence. That's always a good sign. So I hope everybody's having a good start to your day. If you're in this part of the world, and if you're in another part of the world, I hope your day has been educational, enlightening. I try not to place too many standards on how your day should be, and sometimes our conditions are arbitrary. Sometimes things aren't always going according to plan. At least that's what we think. And it doesn't always feel good, what we think, but there are many lessons to be learned and more self-awareness to be accrued from our situation. And when we're in Aries, self and self-awareness is the name of the game. So why don't we jump into where we are? The sun has now moved into the second decan. It's been there for about 5 days now. And whenever the sun goes into the second decan in Aries, everything takes a more dramatic turn in terms of the events. Are you coming up here? Man, she is really stalking. So, of course, we're going to have very dramatic public events. What about your private life? How are things going there? Are you the leading person in your own drama or tragic comedy? Or are you a supporting actor or actress? And yes, I do say actress. Which one are you? Because today is one of those days, tomorrow as well, where the whole idea of self comes into play. Who are you? What are you doing with your life force? Why are you here? And are you unnecessarily holding back? Or are you prematurely jumping into the fray? These are the questions that we'll be asking ourselves as the sun conjuncts Chiron in Aries. It'll be a very interesting 3-day period where we get to hang out with other parts of who we are, right? To some degree, Chiron are parts of ourselves that we hide out from or are wounded from. But it could also be a what's the word I'm looking for? Affirmation. I'm going to use an old new age term, an affirmation of where you are on your path and maybe how far you've come, and with some acknowledgement, maybe how far you have to go as well. With the Sun Chiron conjunction, it may be the latter, how far you have to go, but don't sleep on your accomplishments to some degree, whatever they are, however humble or meager they might be. We all have them, right? We all have them. And in the season of Aries, we're looking, more succinctly at how we apply things like courage. And to a large degree, I would use the word authenticity. That's a sign Aries is very authentic in that you don't have to think much about it. You just do and act. That's true authenticity when you come from that place of pure action and pure thought combined as one single force. That's authenticity. You don't have time to think about how authentic you are. You just are. Here we have Jupiter. Get ready. The sun is coming in to join the party with Jupiter over the weekend. So on Friday, tomorrow, we get that critical Sun Chiron degree. That, you know what that feels like to me? That feels like where are we? It's gonna be Thursday, Friday. Boy, we're into all that heavy duty symbolic Aries energy, guns. We know the collective story, or at least we know the story that they give us. There are these things called shootings, and we are in prime shooting territory here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That's on the collective level, and the whole idea of guns and violence really becomes part of the public debate between now and especially Friday, all the way through the weekend. So it's a very powerful weekend, very, very powerful. And if you have the ability to test yourself in a way over this weekend, which we'll talk more about as the weekend approaches, the energy is there for you. But what is the risk involved? This is always an interesting conjunction, risk reward. Here's the risk, and Jupiter's the reward. So it's kind of hardwired into this interesting little stellium we have here. As far as the sun goes, there's also a Mars square. It's just hanging out there. It's right at the edge, but the sun keeps kind of moving away from Mars, so it's separating a bit, which is I don't know if it's good or bad. Just depends on your application of it. It's certainly feisty, but there's less of this energy where you take things personally with Mars and Cancer, because that's what happens with Mars and Cancer. It's a very, very, very subjective energy, very defensive energy. So we moved out of that nice little sextile yesterday with the moon and Mars. And now, as the moon is in the final degrees of Virgo, which is the Taurus decan, this is a really interesting T-square that we're involved with. Very interesting T-square. With the moon Mars square, there can be frustration. There's something about the energy today where there's a lot of questioning and doubt around who you are and what you're doing, quite possibly. And if it doesn't come directly from you with Aries, theoretically, that would be the case. If it doesn't come directly from you, it will come in other directions. So I would say that frustration is a bit of a theme today, and don't let it become a viral thing. Don't let your frustration become viral. That's what I'm seeing here, is that that because that moon in Virgo is peaking, right? It's not quite full, but it's peaking, it's coming on. And the critical energy, which we've talked about before with this moon in Virgo, really is very front and center. As it moves into Libra, the energy around conflict, it's really odd, right? Because the moon in Libra doesn't really want conflict. It wants to reconcile emotional states and be fair with the emotional states with self and other. And as we get closer to the weekend, we'll talk more about the moon Mars square, which is very touchy, super touchy, especially as it relates to relationship. But that's this weekend. We're getting some of it, but the focus and the emphasis shifts here with criticism, self-criticism. And sometimes we get it coming in other directions. We get it in other directions. And this sets the stage in some ways for confrontation and argument over the weekend when that moon moves into square with Mars. So I would say it's a really interesting, energetic day. With all the Aries, I don't know if you can really be kind to yourself, because that's all this Aries is moving forward. It's in motion. it doesn't really have the opportunity to pause in a lot of ways. But I would say that on an emotional level, be very wary about how criticism affects you, because there is that critical nature, even with the Sun Chiron conjunction. It's in the air. But with the Moon Mars square, there's almost a doubling down here of that critical nature. And there's also a sense with this opposition, especially early part of today, or wherever you are in the world, with this Moon Neptune opposition, that there's an energy here that I think is really related to escape. You know, like it's almost the critical nature of our emotional states, or what we're carrying around. I wouldn't say it's too much, but over here with Neptune and Pisces, it's like, you know, Calgon, take me away. Remember that ad? Might be a little bit before somebody's time, but that's kind of the energy. It's like, it's only Wednesday. You check your watch, you check your calendar, and you say, it's only Wednesday. Can the weekend get here faster? Because there's a lot of tension. A lot of tension going on today. Now, there's always a plus side in this sort of dualistic expression of astrology. And if you're a parent or a mother, you want to go to a school board meeting, let it rip tonight, I would say, load cannons, ready, fire. I mean, that's kind of the energy. I mean, this is Mars moon squares can be positively, I'd say use the word positively argumentative, but if it's going in the right direction for the right cause, related to the right emotional expression, it could be good. It could be cathartic. There's definitely some cathartic energy floating around. As the moon moves closer into the Libra phase later tonight and early tomorrow, we're going to have that. It's already there. The moon is trining Pluto, but they're out of sign or out of element. We have Earth here. We have air here. So they're unusual combinations in terms of emotional expression. Very unusual. Some of this also has a lot to do with fighting in some ways for your what matters to you on an emotional level. Like, what are you willing to defend, and what are you willing to fight for? Because that moon Pluto trine is very interesting. Very, very interesting. It almost feels like there is some reward here, really, for standing up in a lot of ways for your own emotional turf, in, you know, cultivating this potential of the moon trine with Pluto, which has a lot to do with, I think, regeneration. We're not quite there yet, but it's close. And when that moon moves into Libra, there can be a real sense of more equanimity and balance and justice and regeneration on an emotional level. Like your struggles or your confrontation, I'll use the word fight, is worth it. But you got to be real careful with the moon Neptune opposition that we all do. And wherever you are, the moon Neptune opposition can be hard. It can be harsh, especially in Virgo. You just want to retreat to that Neptunian position. It's like, I'm done. I'm tapping out. Mars is still in that nice trine with Saturn. Saturn's up to 3 degrees now. Gone are the days when Saturn just entered Pisces. It's still a fairly fresh alignment. But again, long-term projects are worthwhile. It's worth putting the effort in. I like this. I've talked about this Mars-Saturn trine. And another way of looking at the Mars-Saturn trine is don't give up. Don't give up. That Peter Gabriel song pops into my head when I think about it. We have Mercury in Taurus at 1 degree, creeping up on the true node. And here's Juno lingering. You know, I mean, this is very stubborn energy. This is like, nope, I'm not budging. I've made up my mind. I've made up my mind, motherfuckers. right? That's the Mercury Pluto square in effect as well. I mean, there can also be this obsessive digging in of the heels. Pluto at the top of the chart, starting to broadcast the black light of the greater good, the conversation of the greater good. I mean, it's not all bad. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but this is definitely in the collective mix. This is what we're dealing with in the whole issue of gender, non-gender, binary, non-binary, and all the definitions are way out there right now. Right? There's no more fringe conversation about these at times insane applications, absolutely insane applications for the identification of the self. I watched a thing with Matt Walsh. It was one of these town halls, and it was fucking ridiculous. I just have to say, can I say that? I can't. It's my show. Fucking ridiculous. Anyway, there is that energy in the air with that Mercury Pluto square, and it's like, nope. You're not going to tell me how to interface with physical reality. Nope. You know, this whole period of Mercury through Aries and Taurus, I would use the word headstrong, but it's a very different kind of headstrong with Taurus. Mercury, it's ramming ahead. With the Mercury and Taurus, it is slow, right? It's a slower, or much slower Mercury, but slow and steady wins race, as they say. And over the next few days, we have this conjunction with the true node. Should be very, very interesting in terms of where it is in your chart. So you want to look at where Taurus is in your chart, but also, again, from the collective level, this stubborn nature. And you'll see a lot of it in the air. And there'll be some rewards for it. Sticking to your guns, digging in your heels. There is some validity and reward in that. But if you're going to do it, you're definitely going to go through that Pluto square. And it's not necessarily bad. One of the things I would say also with this Pluto square is watch out what you obsess over. There's a money theme in the air too, right? There's definitely a money theme, and people are starting to get freaked out about their money or money in general. I can see this today. That's going to continue to advance over the next couple of days. So keep your eyes on the horizon as it relates to financial news, and you could see people kind of getting freaked out. I can already feel it. We have Uranus and Venus. They're in this nice little 6-degree buffer zone in terms of the conjunction, and kind of moving in right to this interesting grand trine, especially with Venus and the moon. So there is some resolution with the moon. If you're able to kind of fight through some of the things that are critical and important to you without being defensive, there's some things to be gained. You might find some allies today as well. Some very interesting allies who might share the same values as you do. And this gets back into the whole idea of strange bedfellows with the Venus-Uranus conjunction, even Pluto and Aquarius. That's going to be a theme throughout Pluto and Aquarius, the strange bedfellows. So there you go. There's your astro weather for today. Now, the star of the day is a little bit different. And I'll tell you why it's different. Because usually if I take somebody and it's their birthday, well, today it's not their birthday. Do you know why? Because every star of the day today was not great. It's a rare day. There's usually almost always one. And I struggled. In fact, I struggled so much, I can't even tell you really who jumped out as somebody that was really interesting or their chart was worth digging into. So Sunday night, we missed Sunday night, and there are some very interesting people born on Sunday, and that would be April 2nd. So we're actually going back in time a little bit here, and it's my show, so I guess I can do that. Today's star of the day, which would actually have been Sunday is Marvin Gaye. Now, there are a lot of interesting people born on April 2nd, but Marvin Gaye's chart absolutely just screams Marvin Gaye's life. So, the birth time is interesting. It says 12 noon. It got an A rating from Lois Roden, who, of course, is the grand dame of astrology and birth times. So he got an A. This is an A-rated chart. And I'll take it at face value, although maybe it's a little old school and that the doctor may have rounded off the birth time. Maybe it was 11:57, 11:56. It can happen. 12:01, 12:02. They do this. It's like, well, let's just round it off, right? So you can rectify your chart a little bit if you have that that on the button birth time, but I didn't. So I'm just going to go with it here. And what really struck me about this chart is Pluto at 29 degrees on his Cancerian ascendant. And Marvin was definitely a sensitive character. And he had a prickly relationship. He was an Aries. He had a prickly relationship with everyday life in a lot of ways, but which I'll get into a little bit. Marvin Gaye was a very complex character, very complex character. He did some pretty good work with Tammy Terrell, the duo stuff. It Takes Two, Baby, that period of Marvin Gaye and Motown. Then he moves on and becomes a singular voice, and his career really takes off when he's just Marvin Gaye. And he writes some of the most anthemic music of that time with the great record, What's Going On. It's really, in a lot of ways, the peak of Marvin Gaye's career. And he comes from a background where his father was a preacher, minister, and a singer in the church. And there's always this weird rivalry going on with Marvin Gaye and his father. And ultimately, it's his father. We have Saturn up here in Aries, right? So there's the Sun-Saturn conjunction, and he can't get out of this thing with his father. And his father was incredibly jealous of him in terms of his stardom. He was the star of his own congregation, but Marvin Gaye was a much bigger star. Marvin Gaye kind of left the church in a lot of ways. And we can see here also with the Pluto square, right? The Pluto Mercury square. And Marvin Gaye dies at the hand of his father via gunshot. And this is a period of time where Marvin Gaye has come back to the United States. He'd been in exile, kind of, in Europe. And we see Jupiter in the ninth house, and he has one of his biggest hits. Kind of while he's in exile with Sexual Healing. And so he comes back to the States and winds up living with his parents for a while. And he gets into it with his father. It's a very complex. His father was never really charged with killing him, which is very interesting. And there's a rumor that his father took him out because of Marvin's relationship with the quote unquote Illuminati and the record industry, and what he had to do in order to stay in the record industry and be relevant. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's one of those rumors. And so his father kills him, right? We have this Pluto square with Mercury. And of course, Saturn's in the mix as well, with the conjunction with Saturn and conjunction with the sun. But there's a lot more to Marvin Gaye than that. Marvin Gaye was a freak. If you read or if you read any of the stories, there's a myriad of YouTube videos out there that detail his very complex relationship with his wife, whom he met when she was, I guess, 16. She might have been 16. He winds up eventually marrying her and having kids with her. But it's a very complex relationship. And Marvin Gaye has this weird kink going on in the third house. The moon in the third house can be interesting because it does reveal some unusual emotional expression as it relates to sort of this partitioning, this Gemini, this in some ways fragmented emotional context. And I think Tiger Woods has Moon in the third house, if I'm not mistaken. And Tiger Woods is a little kinky. If you really go into Tiger Woods's strange story, you'll encounter the kink in Tiger's chart and in his life. And it's the same for Marvin Gaye. You know, he has this Moon Neptune conjunction. So, you know, Virgo Moon, it's kind of like today's moon in a lot of ways, right? Very similar, about 2 degrees off. And so Marvin Gaye definitely wanted to merge on an emotional level. I mean, that's the, you know, but it's so, this conjunction is so tight and so close. And Neptune is retrograde in the chart. So it's, you know, wanting to move away from the moon. It's almost this emotional suffocation. But Marvin would do weird shit. Like he would set his young wife up essentially to, you know, to have sex with other people so he could watch. Marvin Gaye was a bit of a voyeur. You can see this here. You know, this is kind of like the moon in the third house. Sometimes it's sort of, again, you know, sort of splitting off from the self and observing how it all goes down. And he would play these weird games with her. And one time he set her up with another singer, Frankie Beverly of the group Maze. And we have this in conjunct with Mercury and Neptune and the moon. And then Marvin would it was weird. Like he would kind of set her up and then he would like barge in and you know, try to catch her in flagrante with him. And she had nothing to do with it. I mean, she was just trying to please him and make him happy, but he was not somebody who was easily pleased. Marvin Gaye was, a lot of ways, he was all about Marvin. He was all about Marvin, and he paid a price for that. But he had some strange stuff going on in the intimacy territory. And even this Mercury strange kind of, what is it? What's the in conjunct here? Is it Saturn? Looks like it's Saturn. Saturn in conjunct with Neptune in the sun. It's the father lurking in the background. True node in Scorpio. So, of course, his biggest hit is going to be sexual healing with the true node in Scorpio. Makes sense, doesn't it? Venus in Pisces in the third house. And I think one of the things that Marvin Gaye was able to tap into was how he feels and how he's able to communicate that in a lot of ways in his music with that Chiron trine to Venus. You know, this kind of wounded nature or character around love, especially his relationship with it, which, like many parts of his life, was fraught with struggle. Marvin Gaye's life was fraught with struggle. There's no doubt about it. No two ways about it. He married Berry Gordy's sister, and then they got divorced because he screwed around on her. So he was his own worst enemy in a lot of ways. But with all this Aries, you know, he would have to kind of go through the fire, right? And I really like this Pallas conjunction with Saturn. To me, that is what's going on. That is the album that's looking at what's happening in the world and seeing the patterns of the world and having a very sort of solemn statement, but also a beautiful one about the nature of where we are in this realm. And he has Mars in Capricorn and the sixth house. So the guy had to work, right? I don't think Marvin Gaye was lazy. I don't think he was lazy. I think he enjoyed touring, and I think he enjoyed the whole process of working. But again, you know, Mars Uranus trine, it's almost like he became too experimental and too non-mainstream for Motown, right? He eventually had to verge off and kind of do his own thing, even though he's probably still under contract with Motown. So very complicated chart, a very complicated man. And Marvin Gaye is our star of the day. There we go. All right. If you're into CBD, I cannot stress how much the CBD from True M Science really helped me when I was back in California. It was great. It was great. I was dealing with a lot of stuff like time change and environmental stress and sleep, and all of it was covered under the CBD plan. So if you're interested in checking out some of the best CBD that I've encountered, and I've had a few brands, I'm not somebody that's tried like there are how many brands tequila, like I don't know, 100 different brands of tequila. There's probably more varieties of CBD out there than there are brands tequila. So I've tried a few tequilas in my life, and I've had a few CBD. Some of them have been put together by big mainstream companies like Gaia. And I can tell you right now, Gaia's sleep version of CBD, which includes some other things and not just CBD, it's okay. It's not as good as the gummies. I'm just saying. So if you are interested in getting yourself some really high quality CBD oils, edibles, water soluble CBD for your pets, go to truemscience.com and just type in 15MINS, and you'll get some free product. But you got to spend $100 or more. And if you spend $150 or more, you get free shipping. And in our economy, every little bit helps. It all helps. So improve the quality of your life, support a homegrown business, and also you're supporting the show by getting some of Chris's high quality products. And then over on 15 Minutes of Flame, that's where I'll be shortly in about 35 minutes or so, roughly, I guess 31 minutes. So we had a pretty good show yesterday. We talked about what was going on in New York and Trump, and I'll have a little bit of follow-up with that today. And just the shit show. It's a shit show. And there's more going on, a lot more going on than just what's happening in New York City with Trump and Alvin Bragg. But, it's in the news, and there's certain things about the Alvin Bragg dynamic that I do want to talk about today. So that'll be part of today's show, but it won't be the entirety of it. Please join us over on 15 Minutes of Flame. That's 15minutesofflame.com. All right, a little bit of a longer Astro Weather today, but I hope you got some merit and meaning and value out of it. If you want an astrological reading, look me up, robertphoenix.com, and you can go to my website at the top. You'll see it. Services, readings. Go on in and make yourself an appointment. So there you go. You use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. Mods, thank you very much, even for your stellar work at this time of day, and everybody in chat and out there in the internets. Much love, and have a blessed day. And if you're somewhere in the evolution and cycle of your day, I hope it's a good one and one that you're learning a great deal from. That's a Virgo moon statement. Take care. Bye for now. I'll see you guys here tomorrow. 15 Minutes of Flame in about a half an hour.